Hide your guns, hide your grenades, and hide your OP builds because they're nerfing everything out here. So it's your boy Daquan back here with another quick video. We got the Sage Gamma Burst build update. So I'm gonna go over this thing real quick, real smooth. I want to show you guys the skill tree first because that's basically the core of the good old build, and then we'll hop into the good old items. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on the wrong thing probably. Nope, clicked on the right thing. So let's hop right into this. So I made very slight adjustments to this good old tree. This tree is the same for the most part. We have our Fierce Attack maxed out. We can put the points from here, maybe like 2 or 3 points into Eager to Impress if you do feel like you need that little bit more cooldown. And the rest of the thing is pretty straightforward. Basically just maxing out our damage where we can. And then going over to the power inside so we can get big DPS. Most of the time we're probably going to be at full HP because our pet is going to be tanking. We can flex into fadeaway if we want to, but we don't necessarily need to. And let's hop into the good old blue tree. So here we got the good old Gamma Burst. We have 3 points into Persistent Hunter and 2 points into Ferocity. This is just so we can go ahead and get to the 5th tier. Persistent Hunter helps us out a bit more than everything else. So we did end up making some changes. We put 4 points into here and 1 point into Heat Bites. This is going to go ahead and provide us with quite a bit of health regeneration and help our pet sustain a little bit. Mostly this is for us. And then the health regeneration that we end up getting is going to go back to the pet due to it having like a whole little loop with all my BFFs. So it works out super duper well. We only needed 1 point into Heat Bites because we just wanted our frenzy stacks to stay up and to proc more and more often. So as soon as we get to the max frenzy stacks, Heat Bites will help out that, and we will be able to go ahead and mow down the enemies relatively well. We took the point out of Psycho Head on the stick because we were just trying to get our frenzy to remain high, but this didn't really provide us with too much. And then we left out Hive Mind because we are not the ones tanking. We're going to be at full HP most of the time. Even if we do end up tanking, like I did show in the beginning of the video, we are more than capable of doing so. So 4 points into Barbaric Yap. That way we can get the most damage out of our good old Skag. And then mutated defenses, we put 1 point into that. That's going to work out relatively well for the situations where they are going to end up getting low. But this pet can tank super duper hard inside the setup. And instead of putting another point into Barbaric Yap, we went ahead and put 2 points into Pack Tactics. So we're missing out on very little damage by putting the point into Pack Tactics instead of Barbaric Yap. So for our side panel, we have Atomic Aroma. This is going to go ahead and provide us with a nice little stream of damage from our good old pet. This is scaled up with the good old pet damage. And then we have Burst Aid, which will help us out in some of the harder content. Most of the time, you won't need this unless you are running the harder content like the Slaughter Shaft Mayhem 3 on True Vault Hunter mode. I'm not sure how hard the normal one is in comparison, but this does help out quite a bit. And if you aren't running something that difficult, just speed up your clear speed by running like Empathic Rage or maybe even Endurance. I like Empathic Rage a bit more than Endurance. Endurance is cool, but I like focusing on Flak's damage rather than the pets because it's not too much to scale off of. So let's hop into these good old items. So in your first slot, you just want a strong Gamma Burst gun. This is a gun that works out relatively well. Due to it being corrosive, it allows us to go ahead and melt through armor at a pretty good pace. So whatever top tier guns that you know of, just go ahead and apply Gamma Burst to it, and that's going to be for your first slot. Good Gamma Burst guns are going to be something like a Lucian's Call. Rowan's Call is towards the top, but I don't really like it too much, so you can play around with that if you want to. Laser Exploder, Old Flacker, something like a Cutsman works out relatively well. Flagger's still okay. It's not completely dead, but it's not the greatest right now. It's just okay. A Crossroad would still be okay as well. Maybe not the best gun now. It got nerfed a little bit, but it's still relatively good. So those type of guns, and there's a few more that I left off the list, but those type of guns work out relatively well in a Gamma Burst variation, including the Pestilence actually. And then for the second slot, we switched off of the Flacker. We're going to use a Cutsman. Cutsman is going to do a ton of damage. Of course, you do want one with a damage anoint on it. I've been seeing a lot of the Cutsman dropping, so I just picked this bad boy up and it works super duper well. It got nerfed a little bit by 25%, but it still performs very well. This is going to be the gun that you're going to be using most of the time. And when you start running low on ammo for the good old SMG, you want to go ahead and use the primary Gamma Burst gun that you do have. Depending on the one that's stronger at the time, is going to be the one that you're going to end up using. Right now, this works out better for me than my primary gun. And then there are other guns that you can use inside this good old slot. There are a few alien tech guns that work out super duper well. Like this gun right here works out pretty decently. It's not the best variation. There are definitely better variations. But there are a few options that you can play around with that work out relatively decent inside that second slot. But the custom is probably going to be something that you'll be able to find relatively fast. I would suggest a fire version of it because of the anointed enemies. Doing fire damage to flesh ends up doing a bit more damage than some of the other elements. So we run a hive as well. Typically, you would use this as the opening. You would go ahead and gamma burst, and then you would shoot out your hive. And you would use that as a constant stream of DPS, and you would go ahead and start shooting down the targets while you have the hive active in the background. You'll be using your Cutsman or using your primary gamma burst gun. So in my case, I'm gonna end up using this maybe in the opening and mostly at the end of my good old gamma burst, so that way I can get the max damage out of the anointment, whatever it is. I get the most damage out of this version of the hive, and from there, go ahead and proceed and mow down different things. And plus the radiation will go ahead and start to apply to all the enemies, and then the explosions of the AoE will work out relatively well and help you clear things, really. So this is a nice little combination of things that you do want to go ahead and run. So that way you can get a nice rotation and you have things for different situations that you run into as you start to proceed throughout the good old Slaughter Shaft. Fourth slot, you can run whatever you want right here. This, I'm just playing around with it. Phaser is an okay gun since it did get buffed a little bit as a Gamma Burst variation. This works out relatively well. I'm not sure if it is one of the top tier guns, but it's definitely not at the bottom. It's a pretty solid gun. Probably not the best though. And in the fourth slot, I would probably run something with lifesteal. So in those situations where you're getting super duper low on health and you do believe that you do need to regen your HP right there in that moment, and you don't have Gamma Burst open or you don't have Gamma Burst up, you can go ahead and have something with lifesteal and you'll be able to go ahead and get that HP coming right back up on top of the health regen that you have inside your kit. So maybe lifesteal will work out well for you. You can play around with some other options. This is not mandatory at all. Most of the time, you're only going to be using these top three right here. And the fourth slot is just open to whatever you think is best for you. Lifesteal seems like a reasonable choice, but honestly, I haven't needed to use it. So with the pet buffs increasing the HP by 50%, I wasn't 100% sure if we did still need to use this shield. So this shield provides you with a whole bunch of HP as well as max HP. You can play around with some other shields that do have max HP attached to them, so that way you can get a whole lot of health on your good old pet. A whole bunch of health regeneration on your good old pet now that it actually got buffed. But as I was playing around with the good old shields, I played around with not all the top tier shields, but a good handful of them. I played around with a red suit and an elemental boost, and it didn't really seem like it gave me enough value. I played around with another transformer. What's it? The stopgap? Do I have a stopgap on me? I probably have it in the good old bank. But I played around with a stopgap, and it was cool. And it really just came back around to me liking this shield the most, because the whole setup for this good old build is health. So having a whole bunch of health works out super duper well with all the health regeneration inside the good old kit. And this just allows you to go ahead and sustain through so much inside this good old game. So I like this shield a lot. You guys can use a different shield. Of course, I would recommend one that has max HP regeneration on it, so that way it just works better with the overall set. But just run whatever you feel works out better for you. But this is the one that you can get from Athena's. It's the Holy Spirit, and you do that optional quest, and you'll be able to pick that up. So inside this slot right here, we are running the legendary class mod, Red Fang. Red Fang is going to go ahead and provide us with a good old taunt for our good old pet. So the things that you do want to look for in terms of skills are going to be something like Heat Bites, drop on this good old mod. And then Eager to Impress will also be the thing that you do want to go ahead and get. The pet damage is pretty irrelevant. Having Eager to Impress and having something like Heat Bites for the reflection are going to be things that are going to provide you with way more value than the general pet damage that doesn't scale too well. It's cool, but it's not really anything that great. For your substats, you do want something that's like damage oriented. What I have right here is pretty cool though. The added damage reduction helps me out, and the added HP is always beneficial. But you do want something with some type of damage. You don't really need too much bulk inside the setup once you get it rolling. Something like cooldown reduction inside the setup is going to work out super duper well because we do not have a ton of cooldown reduction inside the set normally. So cooldown reduction, damage reduction, health are going to be some cool things that you can look for if you get a good old red fang. Right here I have a Chupa's organ. Now this didn't work out too well because it is a sustained heal instead of a burst of healing. Because if you're getting hit relatively hard inside of the good old Slaughter Shaft, having a burst of healing from something like a transfusion grenade would probably work out way better and make you feel better as you play around with it. I could not find a good old transfusion grenade in a good time span because I actually threw one out the day before the patch because I had no bank space. But I'm gonna end up trying to find one of those, and I'll test around with that and let you guys know how that bad boy works out. But in theory, that one should work out super duper well for keeping you guys alive and give you that burst of healing, because you're gonna go ahead and heal your HP and heal your shield. And Merv Hex did get nerfed quite a bit. The radiation one still does work relatively well. This thing is gonna go ahead and provide you with a cool little bit of extra damage. If you do need the extra damage, you can run this. If you do want a bit of extra healing, run the transfusion. I have heard good things about the Stormfront grenade, which I don't have on me right now because I also threw that away. And yeah, we're going to try out some of these other grenades and see how these things do with a good old nurse. But yeah, try out transfusion. Let me know how you guys like that. I have heard good things about the transfusion grenade, and it makes a whole lot of sense for this setup because there are going to be times where your gamma burst is down and you do need that little bit more sustain. And that'll probably help you go ahead and get to your next gamma burst and give you that extra chain of regeneration that you may need inside the setup. So for our good old legendary artifact, we are running an Atom Bomb Auto Idle. So if you feel like you need more damage, you can run an Atom Bomb. If you feel like you need a little bit more sustain, you can run an Auto Idle. This is a combination of the two. Things that you do want to try and find for this one are going to be something like cooldown rate. Anything attached to damage, like area effect damage, is going to help out. Damage related to your guns is going to help out. Health is going to help out a little bit. With the upgrades, this thing was a good old clear, the good old Slaughter Shaft. It was very comfortable. If you guys have any questions about anything at all, let me know. Your boy will be in the comments. I'm outie.